Well, I hope you're sitting comfortably because guess what? We're back again with more Pete, and the MD Emperor has no clothes. Now, so far for those who have been following along, every single point we've hit so far, every single chapter has literally just been fear, 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 don't trust your MDs, and basically spewing his nonsense to try and convince you that naturopathic doctors deserve some sort of seat at the medical table, and in no way so far has he shown that to be true. Now, we're on chapter 7, and chapter 7 is called Facts Are Stubborn Things. So let's begin, shall we? If I were running around town saying that gravity didn't exist, a reasonable person would expect me to be able to prove it. To be able to prove this point, I would have to do something like jump up and float around the room or hit a golf ball to the moon. I would need to back up my position with factual proof. In everyday life, people have opinions about a lot of mundane things. The type of car they think is best, the political party they think is best, the best way to cook pizza, and so forth. It's just human nature. And a lot of those things are based on belief. And we're going to get into that later on. In the great scheme of things, it is really not that important that somebody actually proves that a deep dish pizza is better than thin crust. Most people are going to eat the pizza that they like. I can see an analogy coming along here. Regardless of what anyone else says. Again, it's just human nature. But opinions about important things, like medical treatments need to be supported by facts, as the lives are on the line. And I would agree. Medical thought not only needs to be supported by facts, but more importantly, scientific fact. Where were we? If I am correct in my assertion that MD-directed reductionist pharmaceutical treatment does not work for chronic disease, which so far in 6 chapters you have not even proven to be able to prove that, because again, you haven't been citing any facts, so hopefully this is the time where you will actually cite facts, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, there should be facts to support my position. There are. The fact of the matter is, there are nothing but facts to support my position. Really? So you are saying that you have facts that so far all the chronic diseases that you have listed in our past chapters, not only you supposedly have this proof, then why not put your proofs to the test? Go out to a lab and do your medicine under laboratory and scientific study conditions. Prove beyond a reasonable doubt, like many other medical doctors have done in the past, that were originally challenged for their beliefs. Because, believe it or not, that is a thing. If you don't believe me, go and look up Medicine Through Time. Now, I was quite fortunate. I did this in year 10 and 11. This was part of the GCSE we did at the time. Now, I don't know if it's still done, but it was a fascinating subject. And guess what? Every single major discovery back throughout history always was challenged by the establishment. That was until the guy was able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that their evidence they presented was true and correct through scientific study and analysis. They weren't just saying, this treatment works, and here's my anecdotal evidence. They were saying, this treatment works, here's the hundreds of observations and tests that I have done and performed to prove this works. Now, this is quite funny because this actually ties into something we've been before. Now, we've said that, well, as we discussed last chapter, and certainly a couple of chapters before, naturopathy is based on the treatment of the four humours, which is a completely unscientific way to go about proving things. Now, you have a French doctor called Galen. Now, Galen came along and he challenged a lot of the... was it Galen or was the Galen the doctor? Oh, I can't remember now. But anyway, yeah, he was a French doctor and he challenged, in the Renaissance time, the conceived medical wisdom at the time that hadn't changed really since the Roman Empire. It hadn't changed at all. And he was one day working on a battlefield and he ran out of hot coals able to cauterize a wound. And this had been the standard medical treatment since the Roman times. Now, what happened? Well, he basically whipped up cold paste with egg whites, and he used this as a salve, and he was tortured. He thought this patient was going to die by the next morning, so immediately comes the next morning. What happens? This guy is walking up and around. He's pretty much almost recovered, while everyone else who he has cauterized wounds for is still in pain and unable to move. And from that point on, he starts challenging the conventional medical wisdom, and he's able to prove a lot of the things that had been said by these Romans was completely false. Another thing that he famously did was he disproved the fact that the Belzar stone cures all poisons. So what he did to prove that was he got a load of death row inmates and said, eat this poison, and then afterwards have this Belzar stone. Now, medical convention thinking at the time was, if you give that, he's cured. And they were all said, if this cures you, you are free to go. They all did it because they thought they were going to be cured. Not a single person under that test survived. Again, he disproved another, at the time, what was considered to be a conventional fact. And again, this happens throughout all the medicine history. Again, it's a fascinating subject. I can do an entire video just on it, but we've wasted enough time on that, so back to the point. Back to the book, shall we say. So he continues. I could write an entire encyclopedia outlining the facts concerning enormous failings of our MD brethren over the course of the last 200 years. It is... okay, that I'm certainly willing to challenge, but what about your colleagues' failings? I've noticed you're not willing to say anything bad about that. An easier way to find these failings firsthand is just to go to a hospital. Everybody in the hospital that is not a trauma patient is there because their MDs have failed them. Not really. A lot of people go into hospital to have treatments, to have scans, because it is the best place to do these things in a safe, sanitary environment. You can't just go to someone's home and perform surgery. It would just not be done. Health is our birthright, he continues. The only reason that our health fails us is because the medical treatments that we've decided to use do not work. Again, you haven't presented any proof that your medical treatments work, nor have you presented any proof or evidence that the MD treatments work, other than they don't work. That's all you've been saying for the past 38 pages at this point. Holistic treatments cure disease and secure health. You haven't presented any evidence that your treatments work either, other than your say-so. Holistic treatments cure diseases and secure health. Holistic treatments cure disease and secure health. Is it sinking in yet? People don't get sick because they have a bad gene. all because they have been cursed by God. I'm sorry, but again, last chapter, this guy completely ignores the fact and discoveries that we have made in genetics, and that there are a lot of diseases that are genetics and that are passed on, and that if your parents had it, you are more likely to be susceptible to it because you have the genes for it. This guy completely ignores that and says that it's an excuse by your MDs, despite the mountains of evidence they have to prove otherwise. This guy is ignorant in that fact completely. Or because they're getting older. Yes, that is a fact, because your body starts to shut down. That's a proven medical fact. Otherwise, what? Are you saying that, people can live forever if they go your naturalistic route? I don't think so. They get sick because the doctor they have gone to is incompetent. No, again, you haven't proven that MDs are incompetent. If I and my holistic colleagues can cure these things, why can't MDs? You can't prove you've cured these things. It is your say-so that you've cured these things, Pete. You are an absolute failure, and you are a complete quack. Instead of writing an encyclopedia, why aren't you writing an encyclopedia and then maybe submitting that to be tried and tested? Oh, that's right, because you would fail, and then you would show that everything I've said up to this point is true. I have outlined below the more silent failings of our misguided MD cousins. This is going to be good. If you're wearing a seatbelt, I alluded to in the prologue, this would be a good time to tighten it up. So we go on now to listing some of his facts. Depending on how you crunch the numbers, MD treatments are the first, second or third leading causes in the US. 1 to 2 million people are killed, wounded or infected by MDs every year. Nobody goes to jail. 3,000 people died on 9/11, we go to war. Okay, first of all, if someone is killed by an MD, by their treatment, they do go to jail. There are investigations carried out on this all the time. If someone is wounded, that doctor faces the chance of losing his license. Compared to people like you, Pete, where your licensing board has the power to take away MD's license from when they've been shown to do harm, and yet they've done nothing to remove these people's licenses, and they've kept on practicing. And I'd also like to point out again, people that go onto these, very often these guys are sneaky and will make you sign a waiver, right? And this waiver excludes them from being culpable if your disease gets worse unless there is actual proof, and then, maybe then you can take this guy to court. But the problem is, people by that point are so far under the influence of guys like this that they don't, and this guy gets away with it. I would love to see how many patients have actually died while under his care or undergoing treatments. Now, he'll never release that information, ever. But it would be really interesting to know that number. Because that's a fact, Pete, that many others would like to know. His next fact: heart disease is the leading disease killer of people in the United States. It has been the #1 disease killer for the last 80 years. MDs have been in charge of medical care since 1920. Well, that's not an MD's fault. Most of heart disease can be self-inflicted and is down to that person's lifestyle. It is not the decision of an MD. MDs can give out all the advice they want to these people, but if they choose to continue to live the lifestyle that damages themselves, then that's their doing. That's their own fault. That's not the fault of the MDs. Unless this guy is saying that, you know, if his lot were to gain power, then they should now gain the power to come into your homes and decide what food and what lifestyle you live. Because that's the only way I can take away from that. This means, under the watchful eyes of MDs, heart disease has remained the #1 disease killer of people in the US for 80 years. Again, it's not down to MDs. That's not the MD. Again, as we discussed, this is not the MD's fault. This disturbing statistic, when you consider the fact that statin drugs, the drugs sold to us, can be the cure for heart disease, are the most prescribed... Oh, wait a minute. Cure. He said cure for heart disease. He's admitting that MDs have a cure for heart disease. So, hold on. You've just said in this chapter, and the past chapters, MD's cures do not work. The drugs sold to us... hold on, I've lost my place now. Yeah, most prescribed drugs in the country, to the tune of $18 billion a year. Additionally, because of advice of our MDs, have been on fat-free food craze in this country for 20 plus years. You know the drill. Butter is bad, fat is evil, olive oil is the answer. If statin drugs and fat-free diets worked, then wouldn't a reasonable person expect to see heart disease rates declining? Why, yes, you would, but they don't. 26 million people a year have heart disease. So, here again is the problem. Because this is something I'm going to actually have to look up in terms of heart disease. Because that alone, heart disease, what type of heart disease are we meaning? Are we meaning people who have strokes? Are we meaning people who have heart failure? Are we talking the myriad of things this comes under? You know, you can't just, again, it's like saying cancer. What type of cancer? What stage of it? Again, we have to... Again, this guy is not willing to admit that there are other things associated other than just heart disease. And you've got to be able to break that down into specifics. What do you... so he continues. When you do a Google search for heart disease, you are directed to websites that tell you about death rates, not the actual number of people who have heart disease. Well, that is, again, a statistic we can actually use to disprove your thing that you've just said. Now, again, I'd need to go and look it up. And if someone does want to go and look it up and post it below, then go ahead. But again, if death rates for heart disease are falling, then that proves that treatments are doing something right. According to the US government and the Center for Disease Control, he continues, deaths from heart disease have fallen dramatically over the past 50 years, from over 595 deaths per 100,000 people in 1950 to less than half that number in 2000, 258 people per 100,000. Now, he's just said, in that supposed fact, why aren't these diseases falling? Well, he's just stated that heart disease is falling. This is unbelievable. So he's going to try and worm his way out of it, but I'm not going to let him. If you weren't paying attention, looking up at these numbers, you would think that heart disease is actually getting better. It is not. You've just contradicted yourself. You just said that if numbers were falling, that would show that you know, there was that the MD treatments were working. The devil is in the details. According to Population Reference Bureau, the declines in heart disease deaths can be explained in part by improvements in emergency care, decreased smoking accounts for some of the improvement, but only in recent years. An often overlooked factor in disease number of deaths from heart disease has been a general decline of infectious diseases, since heart disease can be brought on and complicated by infections. Okay. So then treatments then are working. You've just said if there's a decline in heart disease, they must be working. He's already trying to weasel his way out of this. I'm not going to let him weasel his way out of this. So he continues. What this all means is that there are just as many people still getting heart disease as there always have, but fewer are dying from it. Which means, in your own words, what you conceived to be a fact, you said, if the death rates for heart disease are going down, that must show that the cures are working. You've just stated that heart disease deaths are going down. That must mean that the cures are working. These supposed cures that don't work. So where does he continue on from here? The fewer deaths are attributed to improvements in the treatments of other diseases, not because the actual treatment of heart disease as well. So I'm sorry, but the treatments in other disease do have an effect on heart disease. You've just said that. You've just stated that, and now you're saying that it doesn't. And people take this guy seriously. Remember, people take this guy seriously. This is just so ridiculous. I just can't believe it. So where I've lost my place now. A few beeps line from it. Yep. Here we are. Cancer deaths. This will be fun. Cancer deaths have remained consistent since 1950 at about 200 deaths per 100,000, making cancer the second disease killer in the US. I've devoted an entire chapter to the cancer problem. Look forward to that. But the take-home message here is that MD directed medical treatment has caused us to lose the war on cancer. If that's the case, why are survival rates for cancer increasing and death rates going down? This is, again, go on Cancer Research UK, go on the US Cancer Research Society, look up these statistics. These are true and these are facts. He's not going to mention this. So that's an outside, just complete wrong claim to make. So yeah, the thing is though, he goes on and just starts listing other facts. So I can only guess that was put down originally in other editions, because this is the third edition, I think. Yeah, this is the third edition, the most recent one, and that he's been challenged on that in the other edition, so he's had to put that in to try and convince people that his fact was right. Not only does he contradict himself at least 3 or 4 times, but he's already shown that he can't prove that, you know, what he's saying is true. Other sources have disproven him, and then what he's done, he's gone to those other sources and then tried to weasel out of it. And he hasn't. He's failed. So now he continues to go on his fact rampage. So, another fact, there has been a 36% increase in obesity in the United States from 1976 to 2007. Approximately 64% of the US population is overweight or obese. The fastest growing segment of the population that is overweight is children. Approximately 17% of the under the age of 17 are obese. In 1976, it was approximately 6. While MDs have been driving the medical bus, obesity levels have skyrocketed. That is not the MD's fault. MDs can dish out the nutritional information till the cows come home, but if people do not want to follow that nutritional advice, that is on them. That is not an MD's fault. So you're trying to pin the this obesity epidemic on MDs. That's not their fault. That's the American people's fault. Here's the other one. Here's his other fact. Now let me see. I was just talking about something else next. What was it? Let me think. Let me just give me a minute. Let me think. Oh yes, I almost forgot. It's Alzheimer's disease. That's a rather tasteless joke, Pete. By putting MDs in exclusive control for the medical marketplace in the last century, Alzheimer's disease has risen from complete obscurity to the most sixth prevalent disease in the US. It's never been an obscure disease. And again, Alzheimer's, again, it has lots of different stages. There are ways we've been able to detect it early, which again adds to numbers. There are, again, different treatments. There's a whole load of myriad things. This guy does not want to go into detail, because if you go into these details, then guess what? It shows that he's wrong. So again, he's trying to, in this fact, again, he's trying to pin this on MDs. How are MDs responsible for giving people Alzheimer's? Again, when I was a kid, I didn't know anyone who has Alzheimer's disease. Well, memory is a terrible form of remembering, because I'm pretty sure Alzheimer's disease was a thing when you were 8 years old. Again, I'm just skimming over this because I'm just trying to see where he's trying to blame doctors for this. Oh, here it is. My colleagues and I are of the opinion that Alzheimer's disease is a physician-created disease. Oh, okay. Let's see what your fact is on this then. Let's look at this from a common sense point of view. If I had a patient with a broken bone, I would give him a dose of calcium, because bones are made from calcium. Wouldn't you try to reset the bone, Pete? I don't see how giving calcium someone for a broken arm or a bone is going to fix that broken bone. It needs to be set in the position and set properly so that it can heal. You know, what an MD will do, not give you calcium. If I was treating someone with arthritis, I would give them glucosamine sulfate, as that is one of the things that joints are made from. That is not how medicine works, I'd like to point out. That is shocking. If I am helping someone who has a problem with their brain, Alzheimer's, I'm going to give them raw materials that their brain needs to stay healthy. Well, that doesn't work, unfortunately, Pete. I'd hate to burst your bubble. Guess what the brain tissue is affected in Alzheimer's disease made from? In addition to tightening on your seatbelt, you may want to assume the crash position. Part of the brain that is affected by Alzheimer's disease is made from clearosol. Yeah, clearosol. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Yeah, clearosol. Yeah, that's right, clearosol. For 30 years, MDs have been telling us that clearosol is bad, and have been aggressively encouraged to. Oh no, cholesterol. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, that's my entire shitty thing. That's my entire shitty reading coming into play there. Do apologise for that. and have been aggressively encouraged to drive our cholesterol levels into the dirt with fat-free diets and statin drugs. In the same period, rates of heart disease have not changed. You've just again contradicted yourself from a fact you got from another government website, so that's really crappy research on your part, Pete. The rates of heart disease have not changed, and Alzheimer's disease has burst into centre stage of the most prevalent disease. Think there is a connection? Well, no, there isn't a connection at all. Again, Alzheimer's disease is, again, a complex disease, and it has nothing to do with cholesterol. I haven't even looked it up, but I will come back to this. I will do a separate video on this, because this is just really dumb. Where were we? So yeah, he goes on to his his next fact. By the way, there are no diseases. I literally cannot make this up. This is what his disease. Actually, that's literally what he says. I'm gonna have to literally show you this because, by the way, there are literally no diseases. Right there. Don't know if you can see it, but right there, just to prove I'm not lying. I cannot believe that is dumb. That is beyond dumb. This guy is a complete quack. So, oh yeah, sorry, no, this is, sorry, that's my mistake. But this is still dumb. By the way, there are no diseases caused by elevated levels of cholesterol and triglyceride 8. None. That is so dumb. That is so dumb. And he's disprovable. He's just so dumb. I am just blown away. I am just blown away by that. And yeah, he basically again goes on to say, yeah, your liver makes cholesterol, but the problem is that through bad diet choices and bad lifestyle choices that people make, and again, not MD's fault, this leads to higher levels of cholesterol in your body. This is a bad thing for you. This stops your blood flow and, oh wait a minute, can lead to heart disease. So again, he's now having a go at statins. Statin drugs worked by disrupting the process in the liver by which the body makes its own cholesterol. This is why you have to have a blood test every 6 months checking your liver health when you are on cholesterol lowering drug. So from then, listing on to our advice of our allopathic reductionist drug happy MDs. 13% of our parents and grandparents have lost their minds, literally. By the way, can you guess what all of our sex hormones are made from? That's right, cholesterol. Imagine that. Consequences of driving our cholesterol levels into the dirt are the emergence of erectile dysfunction and menopausal symptoms for the last 3 years, instead of 3 months. Men can't get it up because they don't have the raw materials, cholesterol, in their bodies to make testosterone. Post-menopausal women have hot flushes for 3 years instead of 3 months because they don't have enough cholesterol to make their proper levels of estrogen and proestrogen. But don't we worry about it. They make drugs to fix those things. Ever heard of Viagra? How about Pempro? God, I hope this is the last page because I'm so ridiculous. And then, yeah, he lists off. If you're not angry yet, you are simply not paying attention. That's literally how the chapter ends. And then he lists some links. Now, if these links listed here are anything like the last time listed links, pretty much disprove everything he said. And give you explanations as to why things are happening. Now, again, let me just get back to our last part. Because, again, what we talked about this guy is obsessed with, and what his entire medical philosophy is based on, for humours. MDs have been telling you to get rid of cholesterol. He's assuming all these diseases are being caused by lack of cholesterol, not the fact that they have been, again, linked to these diseases. He's, again, for humours, all about balance. You've got to have the right level of cholesterol. And again, this is going to stop someone if they're dumb enough to read this. Someone might stop taking statins, and that might put their health in general danger. So do you see, again, why I'm reading this book and why I'm pointing out the fact that this guy's an idiot and a quack and a complete charlatan and a hack and a quack? So, yeah, that's chapter 7, folks. Facts are stubborn things. Facts are stubborn things, Pete, particularly when you list them and they don't support your argument. Watch out, because I will be coming back to his claim on Alzheimer's. I will be making a separate video on that, because, quite frankly, that is just so shocking, it needs its own video. And I need to go and look up the stuff to show that, again, he's lying and an idiot who doesn't know jack shit. So join me next time for chapter 8, Wisdom of the Body, where I'm sure he's going to go and tell us about how magnificent the body is at healing itself, when a lot of our diseases naturally happen within our bodies and are caused because of our bodies. Join us next time, folks. Join us next time.